Greetings everybody, GameShrog here, and today we got something fun to look at from developer Mass Creation and published by Pixelheart and Just for Games. We're going to take a look at SHING. So SHING is an old-fashioned beat-em-up that offers gameplay in a spirited adventure with a band of joking warriors. You can discover fast and freestyle combat thanks to its intuitive gameplay. Chain combos, parades, and acrobatics are all at play here with 4 playable heroes that you can choose from at any time. So the Star Seed, which provides power and protection to the land, has been stolen from the city by a strange evil horde. And the wisecracking team that was supposed to protect it set out across the land to get it back.
It wasn't me!
This is bad news. Grab your gear, we need to check on the spire.
You will hack and slash your way through waves of enemies across 8 levels. The game has an Oriental-inspired theme mixed with a little fantasy elements. The locations look to be set in feudal Japan, with some enemies looking like they came from Middle-earth.
Yokai! Wow, we haven't seen yokai since... was it the Azure Bog business?
Now let's talk about your fighters. There are 4 to choose from, all control the same but have different weapons and different special abilities. The differences are subtle, and any one of them can be used in all situations. Tetsuo is the wise-cracking swordsman, tasked with protecting the Starseed.
Let's get right to the ass-kicking!
Eiko, the fierce sword-swinging woman, also part of the team signed to protect the Starseed and keep an eye on Tetsuo, who she may have a crush on.
Hardly a challenge.
Bichiko is the vixen polearm-swinging older sister of Eiko, who protects the town.
Elegance is beauty that never fades.
And Wilhelm is the rugged, seasoned warrior from a faraway land, also seeking to end the plague of evil spreading across the land.
Now you face the fury of Ocklenheim!
All 4 characters control the same way, and despite having different weapons, seem to pretty much have the same stats. Now, for the review, I received a digital copy of the game, so there's no manual and I could not see any different stats between the characters. They do perform different special moves, but all seem equal. Maybe Eiko and Tetsuo are faster, and Bichiko and Wilhelm have stronger attacks, but I couldn't really notice. Gameplay. Each level has you starting with one of 4 different fighters and moving right across the screen. There are often multiple screens or locations that make up each level, with a boss waiting for you at the end. This is very reminiscent of any classic side-scrolling beat-em-up like Streets of Rage or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. You can also move up and down on the field like the previous mentioned retro games, so you're not stuck to a single plane. While playing, you can press the D-pad to switch on the fly to any other character. You can do this as much as you like, and when a fighter goes down, you call in another one immediately. He or she can continue the fight, and if they have enough help, they can pick up a fallen hero and add them back to the queue with a little bit of their help. If you only have a little bit of health, you will not be able to pick them up though. If you clear the current wave of enemies, all fallen comrades on the ground are sent back to the queue. If all 4 die in battle, you have to return to a checkpoint or restart the level. Once you've cleared a level, you can select and play through it at any time from the main menu. This is great for getting new rewards and climbing the ladder on the global scoreboard. Also found on each level are special rooms that you can enter from the battlefield. These can be lore rooms, where you have a short conversation and find out more about the history, or just listen to the characters argue.
Feels nice to finally get out of those dirty clothes.
Ugh. Took you awfully long to walk 10 steps from the bushes to the water.
If you've got it, flaunt it, sister.
Hey, isn't that sign from the Naughty Kitten?
Now that you mention it, there's a bunch of stuff from the city in here.
Looks like they took anything that was powered by the essence.
Weird.
Tets, how do you know about the Naughty Kitten?
How do you know about the Naughty Kitten?
You know what? Forget I asked.
Other rooms might be challenge rooms, where you have to perform a certain task in a set period of time, like only killing monsters using the parry attack, for instance. Once visited, these can be selected from the main menu.
Hardly a challenge.
The challenges are a great way to hone specific skills. And, as an added bonus, once you complete these rooms, you are either given a medal, which you can use to unlock skins later, or in some cases, you'll just get a new skin right when you finish.
Just as planned.
The controls. So this is where the game gets interesting, and different from other similar games. At the start, you are asked to choose between 2 different control styles, which can be changed at any time in the settings. The default method, and the one I started with, uses the right thumbstick for attacks. So pressing towards the enemy will do a basic slash. Pressing a diagonal direction will have you do a high or low slash. Pressing up will send most enemies into the air. In addition, you can do rolls and other combinations to execute more advanced moves. Getting the basic attacks going is pretty easy, but mastering the more advanced techniques will take a little time. The left stick is used to move your character around the playfield. The other control method provided assigns the attack to a button and takes the direction cues from the left move stick. I tried switching to this after playing a few levels and found it more constrictive, so I switched back almost immediately. The right thumbstick method is not without its faults though. If you want to do 3 or 4 basic slashes, you have to tap the thumbstick quickly, basically pressing left or any other direction several times quickly in a row, which is not something you're normally used to doing. But, as I mentioned, you get the hang of it after a level or 2. You also have a jump, block, kick, and dash. All of these are very useful to specific enemies, and when combined with the multiple attack directions, you can pull off some very impressive combo attacks, juggles, and counter strikes. By about level 3, I'd become much better at everything and was performing some very awesome maneuvers. The jump button is pretty self-explanatory, but you can also attack in the air. So you can knock a monster up into the air, then jump, and continue to attack and juggle the guy in the sky, with each hit suspending your fall for a split second. This also becomes mandatory for some of the air-based enemies who can't be reached from the ground. The block button has some nice mechanics, You can just hold the button down and block many attacks, but if you time the block just right, you can perform a vicious parry attack. All enemies have a small sign that they are about to attack, and hitting block right before this happens pops up a direction icon signaling you to press any direction on the attack stick to perform a special counter attack in the direction you pushed. This can be very satisfying.
I'm gonna feel that in the morning.
In addition to the counterattack, you can deflect projectile attacks back at the bad guy or girl. This deflection is cool, but also required against certain enemies, so you'll want to master it also. It's much easier to fight a flying Hawkman if you send his arrow back to him and drop him to the ground. The kick is useful in kicking back one or multiple clumps of enemies. The small foes will be knocked to the ground, giving you a few seconds to go in for the kill. The kick also works great in combos and can be performed mid-air. Larger enemies, however, cannot be knocked down or back. Lastly, there's the dash. The dash in this game is very useful, and you should find yourself using it all the time. It can be initiated at any time and in any direction except up. You can, however, dash while you are in the air, which makes for some impressive combos. The most useful reason to dash is to get out of trouble. If you're surrounded, you can dash through the horde and get to the outside, giving you a better position to attack the whole group. You will also get a special power-up that will drop grenade-like charges at the location you are dashing from. So if you're surrounded and dash away, you'll leave an explosion on the ground, which takes out the whole group. Good stuff. As if all that weren't enough, there are special abilities or power-ups that can happen. Most monsters have a color or element, green, red, and blue for example. And when they are dispatched, they will drop an orb that matches the color for the most part. Green orbs will heal you, red will cover your weapon and fire and make your attack stronger, and blue-white orbs will give you awesome projectile lightning strikes. These upgrades are important as they will help you deal with certain foes easier. Your lightning strikes, for instance, will burst the shields of bad guys that you otherwise would not be able to hit. There are also orbs that give you a shield and the bombs mentioned before. And above function, they all look awesome. When your warrior has several of these abilities stacked, they are a glowing force to be reckoned with. Alright, let's talk about the graphics. SHING has some nice graphics. While the game has a retro beat-em-up feel, the graphics do not. They are modern and sharp. The locations range from city streets to desert plains and rivers and caves. They all look great with lots of little details both in the foreground and the background. You will often see enemy silhouettes emerging from some close foreground location or climbing out from behind barrels in the background. It's very cool. The characters and enemies all have nice detail and are easy to identify. And the animations are an area that SHING really shines. Your character transitions from each attack, jump, and dash in silky smooth fashion, making you feel like a sword-swinging ninja master. And following that attack up with the orc being sliced in half or losing a limb or even its head, depending on the final death blow location, it is satisfying. So while the graphics aren't pushing the limits of the hardware, they are perfect for this type of game. Honestly, they give me a little bit of a Dreamcast type of feel. In the sound department, SHING does another nice job. It's got a great soundtrack. It's a nice blend between techno and guitar-driven rock. And the name of the game itself, SHING, represents the continuous sounds of your weapon cutting through and parrying enemies. In addition to the great soundtrack, the character voices and banter are done by professionals and sound spot on, if not a bit stereotypical.
Everybody all right?
Yeah, but the starseed's gone again.
This tiny scrounger must be favoured by the gods. Its luck is uncanny.
The difficulty. SHING is an easy game to jump into, but a hard game to master. At the beginning of each level, you will often face off with 1 or 2 new enemy types. You will most likely pick these new baddies off pretty easily, but then later in the level you'll face them along with 3 or 4 additional monster types you've faced before. When going up against these mixed groups, it can become a bit of a problem as each one throws a different style attack that you have to deal with. So you might be sword fighting a large yokai orc-like creature, while another one is throwing bombs at you from the back, and another is shooting arrows from the sky. And then there's another one building up a charge in the back to rush you from across the screen. It can become hard to focus on all the attacks coming at you and trying to block your way out of it. So it can be difficult at times. They ease you into it and then they throw everything they have at you. It does, however, make victory all the sweeter. At the end of each level, you are shown your stats and what you have to do to become a master. It gives the game some good replayability. The game sports a global online leaderboard for each level and each level's difficulty, so you can see how you rank up against other players. I really like this, as after I got more comfortable with the controls, I knew I could do better at the first few levels, and in turn climb up the leaderboards. This game can also be played by up to 4 players locally, like the classic fighters of old. My son and I jumped into some 2-player action and had a blast. So what's the verdict? I really like the games Pixelheart is publishing. Good, easy to pick up games with a nod to old school retro classics. SHING is no different. There aren't many negatives to be said about it. Really, one of the most glaring issues is the load times, which is a bit odd. In between levels, or even sections within a level, there can be some long load times compared to today's standards, which slows down the action a little. Now, my copy was a special digital download for the review on the Nintendo Switch, so this may be addressed before final release, or be non-existent on the PS4. Outside of that, the game is more than solid. I give it 4 out of 5 trogs.